Hi, this is a 6-part tutorial series to teach you how to make your first platformer game in GameMaker. The idea of this tutorial series is to give you the tools that you need to make your own platformer game and also to teach you what you can do with relatively simple code in this powerful app. In previous videos, we've implemented the basic mechanics of our platformer: jumping, running, a checkpoint system, even room transitions, a camera system, and screen shake. And in this video, we're going to cover auto tiling, which is when the floor, walls, ceiling, ground, whatever, their graphics automatically change depending on where you place them in the room, which can be a lifesaver when you're doing level design. And we're also going to add sounds and tutorial signs to our game to teach the player how to play the game. So let's get started. We have to do some housekeeping before we learn how to use GameMaker's auto tile system. So these are all things that I have done before starting with this video. So I need you to go item by item and do the following things also. Item number 1, delete R level 2. Just get rid of it. Right click, delete. Item 2, open up R level 1 and delete everything. Keep the room size the same, keep the camera settings all the same, everything's the same, just inside the room layout, delete all the blocks, all the enemies, all the checkpoints, everything, so it's just blank. Item number 3, create a new layer in your R level 1 called blocks, a new instance layer, and make sure that instance layer is underneath your player layer. So drag and drop it underneath your player layer, call it blocks. Now, close out of that. You need to change your block sprite just slightly. So you'll open it up, you'll click edit image, and right here you will click this X to delete it, and then you're going to click this, then there should be a new one in its stead that should look blank like this. And here with your blank square, you're going to fill it in with a bright color, but you're going to make sure that bright color is a little transparent. So you'll just click the fill tool, click a bright color, you'll double click here, the color selection here, and you'll just change the alpha value to something like 60 or 70 here to make it mostly transparent. And then you'll click in here to fill out the block, and you'll still have the same brightly filled in block, but it'll be semi-transparent, which will be important because we want to be able to see our our auto tiles as well as our block objects, which manage collision in our game. I personally also added some semi-white transparent lines here as outlines and an X through the block so I can more easily see it in my room. So make sure it's only the one image here that you make. You can exit out of that. After you do that, go back to our level 1, and in the blocks, newly created blocks layer, select your block object and build a basic level. So this is how I built my basic level. You can mimic this if you'd like, or you can make your own. It's kind of fun to design your own. This is where you can start some basic level design, but I've designed it so the player has to learn to avoid hazards. They learn what checkpoints are, they learn what enemies are, and they just get comfortable with jumping before they leave the room. But build your own level how you would like to build it. And after you build your level, you need to decide on where your player object is going to be created in this newly designed level. I'm creating the player object down here. So what I did is that like I did in the last video, turned off the grid, zoomed in, sort of placed the player object there, and then I just double clicked on it, found out where its X and Y locations are. I took note of those numbers, and then I deleted the player object, which is important, turned the grid back on, and then I went to my R splash creation code and I changed the checkpoint and the target global variables to those coordinates so that it creates our player object in the correct spot. And you can run the game and make sure that that's actually where you want the player to be. And then the last item that you need to do is create a new script to house everything in the R splash creation code. So we've been declaring global variables and things in the creation code of our splash room, but instead let's put that in a script. It's just a little bit more elegant and we can manage things a little better that way. So all I did was that I created a new script. I called it initialize. And when I did it, I made sure to name it here and here, made sure those were both the same. Initialize. And then I copied everything in my Splash creation code and I pasted it here, including the new coordinates for my player object. And then in the Splash creation code, I just replaced it with that script. So it should still run exactly the same, but now we have a script to house it in one convenient location. So after you do all of that, be sure to run your game, make sure everything's working, fade ins, fade outs, and the like, checkpoints, and it's what you want your level to be. So, this is what I want the level to be. Just playing through it really quick. Then I get here, and here's where I will place the door, which I haven't placed yet. Don't need to right now. Now let's learn how to do an auto tiling system, and it's kind of hard to describe, but I think after you see it in action, you will love it. So to make an auto tile system, we need to make and import a tile sheet. Now, thankfully for you, I've already created one, and you should feel free to download mine and play around with it, add numbers to each square in an image editor to figure out what each square does in terms of being corners, floors, walls, etc. And then you can make your own tile system, which is super fun to do. So create a new sprite, create sprite. Probably can't see this because my head's in the way, but I just created a new sprite and I'm going to call it S tiles and import the appropriate sprite. Oh, gotta go back and locate things again. Tutorials, basic platformer, assets. It's called tile blocks is the name of the image. It looks a little complicated, but all these are different blocks or tiles that are going to go into our auto tiling system. And after that, I can just close that. And now we get to create a new tile sheet. So here you should see tile set. Right click that, go to create, and create a new tile set. And let's call it tile underscore blocks. And then here assign the appropriate sprite, S tiles. Now currently the tiles are set too small because these tile blocks are designed to be 64 pixels by 64 pixels. So here under tile width and tile height, change this to 64 by 64 to change these white grid lines. Now, open the auto tiling section of our tile sheet. So click that. And here we'll set the correct parameters. So GameMaker will let us paint these tiles in our room and it will automatically figure out which tiles should be in which parts of the sprite, to use which parts of the sprite. So after I open this up, I'm going to drag this and move this over a little bit so I can see more. So you'll see two types of tile sheets, 16 and 47. 16 is for like a top-down view and you use a grid system to design like paths and grass and things like that, like in a Pokemon game or a Zelda game. But we want a 47 tile sheet for this side view. So I'm going to click plus here, make this a little bigger so I can see it. And you'll see this red square already highlighted. Now what it's waiting for me to do is click on one of these tiles to assign it there, and then click through and assign a tile for each one of these parts of our tile sheet. So the first one is the full one, meaning the one that isn't any sort of border, which here in our tile sheet is the bottom right one. So make sure that this top left one is highlighted. Don't click anything. Go over here to this bottom right corner square and then click it. And you'll see that it got assigned there and it's highlighting the next section. Now from here, you can just click through. I think so, yes. Yeah, and then I can click the rest in order. So here I'll click, then here. And I'm just going to click through the top row. My top row all got assigned appropriately. Now the second row. Next. 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 And then lastly, and I don't need to click the very last tile because we already assigned that to this top left one. And now it is all assigned. I can also change the name of this library. This library over here has a name already of autotile_1. I can just hit F2 and or right click it and rename it to just something more elegant, autotile. Close out of that, close out of that, close out of that. Now I can go into R level 1 and I can make a new tile layer. So next to the create new instance layer, you see a little button that says create new tile layer. I can click that and I'm going to rename it to just tiles. And I'm going to place it underneath all the instance layers. So I'll put it underneath bad layer because that's our very bottom layer. Then we have our tiles layer. And then make sure the tiles layer is selected. And over here, it says no tile set. Click that and select our tile set. Then over here where it says libraries, click that and select auto tile. That's the auto tile library that we created. And now, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. You can start painting your tiles. Now, anywhere you see our block object is where you're going to place a tile. So I'm going to just start here and start placing tiles, clicking and holding. Now, if you accidentally place a bunch of tiles where they're not supposed to be, don't worry. You can hold the right click to delete it. You can also go to, brush size. You can change the size of your brush to be bigger if you want to delete a bigger section, but I use right click. Again, I'm using a 3-button mouse. If you're not using a 3-button mouse, I feel sorry for you because this is going to be more of a pain. You can also, is there another way to delete it? Yeah, I only know how to delete it by right clicking, which is important. Why I told you to use a 3-button mouse at the beginning of this tutorial series. Do that. About halfway done. What's simple about this is that once you've placed a tile, it's impossible to place another tile on top of it, so you don't have to be too precise. And then here, we don't even need tiles because that's outside of our room. That just sort of stops the player from leaving the room, so that doesn't need tiles. So now we have all of this. We have our tiles placed. Now you'll notice if I run the game, we should be seeing our tile set and our blocks, which looks kind of ugly. Now the magic can happen. We can go to our block object and just go over here where it says visible and uncheck that. So that way we can always see it. Oh, reduce the room view. Click out of that. I'll reopen our level 1 as a tab. There we go. And now we should be able to run our game. And we can see my tile set in action. So now everything's visually cohesive. Beautiful. And the collisions are all working. Now the collisions are with our block object, which are still there. You just can't see them. But our auto tile system has created ceilings, floors, corners, everything appropriately, all automatically. So it's all visually cohesive. Oh, gorgeous. It's really fun to create your own tile system, by the way. This is the tile system I created, but you can play around with the tile system and sort of figure it out yourself and design your own, which is super fun. And now let's add some sound effects and music, which is long overdue from my first tutorial series. You should already know how to add sounds, so I'm going to try to be as fast as possible here. Go to sounds, right click, create a new sound. We'll call this one SND music. Import the appropriate SND music. There we go. I'm going to just reduce the volume just a little bit. New sound. Oh, create sound. Call this one SND step. And now we have to create a bunch of other sounds. So I'm just going to highlight SND step and just duplicate it a bunch. So for our death sound, our jump sound, our checkpoint sound, our attack sound. Oh, I have to click away every time. So we have our step sound. Rename this to SND death. Rename this to SND jump. Rename this to SND checkpoint. And rename this to be SND attack. Now I just got to assign the appropriate sounds. So I'll open SND attack, close, checkpoint, checkpoint, close, death, death, close, jump, jump, close. Music we've already signed, and then step, step. Now we need to go through and adjust like the sound, maybe the volume levels of those, but I'll see how it sounds in our game and adjust the volume levels after. And for the music, we're going to add some code to start and loop the music, both in the initialize script and the room code script. So go to rooms, go to scripts, go to initialize, that initializes our game. And before we go to our first level, write comment play music if bang audio is playing SND music. So if our music sound is not playing, audio play sound SND music, priority 1, loop true. And we're going to copy that and open our room code as well. And then somewhere in our room code, add that as well. Now it will only create, it'll only start playing the music if it's not already playing. So we don't have to worry about it playing multiple instances of the sound. And let's test it out. It should play our music. Yep. Should be nice and quiet for you. It's super quiet for you, but it's nice and like subtle in the background for me. All right, for the jump sound, go to OPlayer, step event, and go to calculate movement, and we want to find the ground jump section, gravity, ground jump, here we are. And in the key jump if statement, we want to write if audio is not playing, so bang, audio is playing, SND jump, double close parentheses, open curly bracket, close curly bracket, audio play sound SND jump, priority 1, loop false. You can also write 0 there. Sound effect. Copy this, because we're also going to add this to the wall jump section up here. Just add it to the end. Correct the auto indentation there. Sound effect, very good. So we couch it in an if statement here because it's possible to get that sound effect playing twice on accident if the player object is positioned in a very specific way in the room, like jumping really close to a wall or a corner. So that's why we housed it in that condition. Let's test the game and see if it's working. Beautiful. For the stepping sound, we're going to minimize this and go where it is, where it says animation on adjust sprite section, and where it says if on ground, there we are. The if on ground, if else statement, add a new line for the sound. So right under where it changes S player to run, you can write if bang audio is playing SND step. So if it's not playing, double close parentheses, open curly bracket, close curly bracket, audio play sound SND step, priority of 1, loop is false, and then comment sound effect. So this code relies on the sound, actually, the actual sound file being adjusted in a certain way. The way I designed this step sound effect has a brief silence, moment of silence at the end of the audio. So the audio will automatically space itself out according to how I edited the sound when I created it. So I could go into my audio editing software and add more silence to the file to make it sound like slower steps, because they're only going to loop when the audio file finishes, it'll create a new sound instance. If I want faster steps, I'll have to go into my sound editing software and delete some of that silence so the steps come a little faster. But if we run our game, you should be able to hear the step sound. Close, minimize out of this. For the death sound, you can go to the death script. Underneath the screen shake maybe is a good place to put it, right? If bang audio is playing, it's indeed death, double close parentheses, open curly brackets, close curly brackets, audio, play, sound, SMD, death, 1, false. Test it out. Death sound works. For the checkpoint sound, we're going to go to the checkpoint object in the step event. Right after screen shake, you're noticing a pattern here. Just write audio, play, sound, SMD, checkpoint, 1, false. And we don't need to couch this in an if condition because this is all happening in a single frame, because after it touches the player, it changes the global checkpoint ID to the ID of that particular instance, and then it will exit out of this else statement and just be up here, so it'll only play for 1 frame. So it resolves itself, let's say. Let's touch a checkpoint. Checkpoint sound worked. And lastly, for our attack sound, go to our OPlayer object in the attack region, in the key attack section after the screen shake, noticing a pattern here, right? Audio, play, sound, SMD, attack. 1, false. Sound effect. Again, this is only happening in a single frame. We could have also added that sound to the weapon object when in its creation code, as well as the screen shake we could have added there, but seems everything sounds good. I think the checkpoint sound effect is a little loud. The music's a good level. I'm glad that we turned it down, and I'm just going to go into sounds and change the checkpoint sound to just be a little bit quieter. There we go. Okay, lastly for this video, we're going to create a sign system to give tutorial signs or information signs to the player to teach the player how to play the game. So one simple way of doing this is to duplicate the checkpoint object, because if you recall, the checkpoint already kind of operates as a sign. When we touch the checkpoint, some words pop up, and they stay up as long as we're touching it. So we can basically duplicate this object and turn it into a sign system. So I'm going to highlight O checkpoint and hit Control D or Command D to duplicate it. You can also right click and find duplicate. Duplicate it and call it O sign. Go to sprites, create a new sprite, call it S sign, and import the appropriate one image. It's a little question mark image, and it's just one. Set its origin to be middle center, and then open our O sign object and assign the appropriate sprite. So we're going to create, we're going to keep the creation code to be exactly the same, except we're going to change what the text says. And I'll just write test text, please ignore. And in the step event, we're going to remove the check for the checkpoint ID stuff. We only want to check if the player object is touching the signed object. So we're going to make it look like this. We're going to delete all of this. Actually, we can just get rid of all of this. There we go, where it just says, we can just have it so it says text. There we go. If place meeting XY O player, And then we can change this slightly. Let's just keep this the same. Keep this the same. We're just going to write some stuff above it. If text fade equals 0, open curly bracket, close curly bracket, audio, play, sound, and we'll just use the same checkpoint sound, SND, checkpoint, priority of 1, loop, false, sound effect. I'll leave this the same. Yeah, so all that should be this. Yeah, that's right. All right. And the draw event, keep exactly the same. Don't need to change that at all. And for now, we're going to open up our level 1. And we're going to put in the checkpoints layer. It makes sense. It's using the checkpoint sound effect. So just in the checkpoints layer, select sign, and let's place a sign. Now I'm going to place the sign pretty close to where we create the player. I'd like it if the sign was exactly where the player was created. So maybe I can do that. But I'm going to put it right there. And I am going to run the game and see if it works. It's a little to the right. Yeah, but if I touch it, it says test text, please ignore. So now if it's working properly, we can change the text of the sign in the room and not in the object editor. That way I can place a bunch of different signs in the room and change what their text says. So I'm going to double click this instance, go to its creation code, and write text equals, open quotes, use arrow keys to move. Close quotes, semicolon. Now run the game, see if it works. Use arrow keys to move. In fact, I'm going to move this sign a little bit over, so maybe I can make it so our player just starts the game by touching it. Yes, there we go. So we automatically tell the player what to do. Very good. Now let's add a few other instructions throughout the room about like jumping, hazards, and the like. So let's add another sign right here that says something like, I don't know, text equals don't touch bad things. And let's add another sign here telling the player to jump on walls. So text equals jump on walls. And maybe one last sign up here that says text equals checkpoints. Oh, open quotes, checkpoints, save your progress. Run the game, see if they all work. Use arrow keys to move. Don't touch bad things. Jump on walls. Checkpoints, save your progress. In fact, I'm actually going to add one more sign right here that tells the player, creation code, text equals space bar to attack enemies. What's great about this system is that it's relatively adaptable. You can even do things like, let's open this text right here, not jump on walls. Over here, there we go. Where it says checkpoint save your progress, that's like a little long. But what's great is you can add a cool little feature here. If you write /, which is a little higher in your keyboard, sort of goes down that way. You should see how it looks. /n, that adds a new line break in your text. So if I put checkpoints save, then delete the space and write /n, it'll look a little jumbled right there, but if we run the game, you should see that it adds a new line to our text, so it's no longer on a single line. Checkpoint, save your progress. So it's a little bit adaptable there. Adds a little line break. There we go. And that's it for this video. We added our sign system. We got the auto tile system working. We got some basic level design. In the next video, we're going to add a title screen and then a save and load system so the player will be able to close the game and then reopen the game and load up where they were and keep progress saved on their computer, which is exciting and kind of fun to implement. And I will see you there.